Hello, everyone. Welcome to VoxEd. I'm Amedeo Zucchetti. As you may have noticed, my name is on the badge you have been given. That's how important I am. Today, I'm going to try to keep you awake during the after lunch. And I'm going to introduce you to white label applications. So how many of you already know what a white label application is? Okay, some of you. The other you will find out. And with this, I'm going to start with a question. When and why do we need white label applications? So let's suppose a client, the Swiss Confederation, asks us to build two applications, Visit Lugano and Visit Zurich. Here, any reference to any existing apps or actual institutions is purely confidential. So not a real case. But so they ask us to build those two applications. And those are applications for promoting tourism in those two cities, Lugano and Zurich. This is the layout of the application. So as you can see, both applications have a navigation menu on the bottom. So you can navigate apps. Right now, the events table is selected. Some of the areas you can navigate are common in both applications. So we have the events and the museum tab in both applications, Zurich and Lugano. But we also have a third tab, which is different. So we have an hiking tab for Lugano and a transports tab for Zurich. So we see the application have something common, but they already start to have something different. Also, if we take a look at the event section, which is the one selected, it features different events for the two applications. So in Lugano, we will display some kind of events, and in Zurich, others. But the layout of the section is kind of the same in both. As you can see, there are some buttons on the top, and then the highlight section on the bottom. Other differences are clearly the theme of the application. In one application is light, and in one application is dark. And also, if you continue, we can see that both applications have different icons and also names that are displayed underneath the icon. And obviously, this is not, I mean, you cannot see it, but the application also have different bundle identifiers, which are used to release application on stores, guarantee that you can have both applications installed on one device, so on. So we are developers, and we need to develop these two applications. And the most straightforward solution we have is to actually make two code bases, two split code bases. It's the simplest, but it also comes with some downsides. And as we have to develop features twice, we will develop bugs twice, obviously, and we will have to fix them twice. And the two applications will come up with some inconsistencies, and this approach also scales poorly, since if our client asks us to build a third application, let's say Visit Bern, we will have to do the thing all over again, and we really don't want to do that. So we see, why should we use two different code bases? Since the applications have something in common, the applications are actually this. So we really want to make use of the things the application have in common and avoid code duplication. And to do that, what I'm suggesting is to use just one code base, 1.5 maybe, but that's the idea for building all the applications we need. So this is what I call the white labeling. So I'm going to show you now how our white label framework works. So at first, we define our project, the white label application. This is a React Native application. It's very simple. It will hold the code we are going to produce. And that means we are going to put the events module, the events area in here, the museums, the hikes, the the transports regardless of the application we are developing. We don't care it's Lugano, we don't care it's Zurich, we are going to put everything in here. This is what the application actually contains. So the navigation system we've seen, it's in common, the modules, that is the tab navigation areas, and the themes. In addition to that, we are going to need something to actually specify which application we are going to build. So we have a configuration file, and in the configuration file, we will describe which module one application will use, which theme, which server address for our services to retrieve different events in the two applications. Also, we are going to specify the application ID, the name, the icons we are going to use. So, and how this all comes together is by using the white label engine, which is the core of our framework. So what the engine does is take in input the white label application and one application configuration. So we're going to tell the engine takes this white label app and also take the configuration for visit Lugano. And then our engine will produce an actual application we can deploy on stores, we can release, and that's the target. And if we take our example we saw before, looks like this. So in one case, we have the white label app. On the other one, we have the Lugano configuration. We give it to the white label engine, and it will produce the app visit Lugano. And it's the same for Zurich. We will give the engine the Zurich configuration. It will produce the visit Zurich application. So this white label app, what it does is take advantage of the part the application have in common and put them together to produce one application. But we still have to solve some problems. And those problems are the choice of the modules we want to use. So in Lugano, it will be events, museum, and hikes. And in Zurich, they are going to be different. Also the content, so we want to show different events in Lugano, different events in Zurich. The theme must be customized, the application ID, the application name, and icon, so on. So now we're going to see how to set up all of this. And as an example, I will take again our applications, Visit Lugano, and Visit Zurich, and our framework will be built to produce those two applications as an example. We will do this with React and Node as technologies, but it's a concept you can apply in different contexts, but this is what we choose to do here. So our project looks like this. So here what we have is the white label project. It contains different components. Some of them we saw them earlier. So the white label app is the React Native project. The profiles directory contains the configuration files. And the white label engine is the actual script that takes the application, the white label application, copies it into the build folder, generates some more files. We will see that in a minute. If we take a closer look now at the white label app, as I said before, is just one other React Native application, so we can initialize it like this. It will produce an application with this bundle ID, com white label. Let's keep it in mind. We will use it later, as long with the default application name, which is white label for us. And the project looks like this. So it's a standard React Native project with the Android and iOS directory, an entry point app.js, and so on. And to this, I'm gonna add a source directory. So the source directory will contain all of our code, all of our white label code that will be used to generate the final product. So what it contains is an entry point app.js, as we saw before. It also contains a bottom tab navigator component, which will be used to actually instantiate the bottom tab we saw in the example, and it will handle the navigation for us. Then we have the modules directory, where we are going to define events, museum, and so on, and the themes. We're going to specify the two themes we're going to use, light and dark. We are going to see all of this in a minute. Will all come together. if we look our profiles instead, we have one for Lugano and one for Zurich in our case. So, and every application has a configuration file. The configuration file at first is empty. We are gonna fill it as we progress during our during this presentation. And the last of our points is the white label engine. The white label engine, I'm going to describe it at a high level. I'm not going to go into the details, but what it does is read the a configuration file from arguments we are giving it, so it can be the Lugano configuration or the Zurich configuration. Then we are going to set a source directory, the base directory that will be used to create our white label project, and also a destination directory, which is read for, in this case, from the configuration. We'll say the ID. So what the white label engine will be copy the source directory into the builds directory we saw before. It was empty, and it will produce this. So chvisit Lugano into the builds directory is just a copy of white label app at first. Nothing more, nothing less. And now we are gonna see how we can use this to actually produce an application from our white label. So the first thing that comes to mind are the modules. So if we take a look at our applications, we have the modules. So we already said it's events, museum, and hiking for Lugano, and museum, events, and transport for Zurich. So we're gonna create all these components and put them together in our white label app. And how it works, we saw this is the structure of our white label app, and we are gonna add directories for each different module. So here we have events, hikes, museum, and transports, and for each of them, we are gonna create those files. So one index.js file, we are gonna see it in detail in 1 second, and a component that will be rendered. I'm not going into the detail of the component, but I'm going to describe how the modules actually is implemented. And one module looks like this. If we take the example of the events, in our case, we import the main component, and then we define a module configuration. And the module configuration specifies an identifier for the modules, a title that will be used under in the bottom tab navigator as long as the icon, and a render module field, which is actually the component representing the module, so what you are going to see. And we export this configuration. And we can do this, we did this for the events, and we can do this also for hikes, for museums, and transports. And you see the structure is always the same, but we change the values, obviously. So now we have our modules defined, and we can use them to generate the navigation system. And the navigation system is handled in the bottom tab navigator. So this component will make use of the modules. So now we want to, let's say, build our Visit Lugano application. So what we do first is import all the modules we need from the modules directory. And in this case, we need events, museum, and hikes. We don't care about transports. We put them together into the modules directory array. So we put them into an array, and then we will do stuff with it. So we will create the routes, one route for each different module. And what we are going to do is it's this. So we define the route being the actual component representing the module, and then we add some navigation options, setting the label, setting the icon. We are gonna see in the bottom tab navigator, and then we are gonna instantiate the bottom tab navigator with any React library we need. It can be React Navigation, React Native Navigation, whatever you need. I'm not going to use any in particular here. And okay, we see here we are generating our navigation system, but there's something that should bother you, and it bothers me, and it's this. So this part right here, it's just custom for Visit Lugano. And if we want to switch to Visit Zurich, the other application, we would have to edit the imports, change the content of the modules list, and that's not really nice because we want to version this file, and if somebody wants to build one application or the other, you have to change the code, it keeps changing. Doesn't really work well. So what we're going to do here is open our configuration files we prepared before, and we are going to tell them, okay, for those two applications, we have these modules. And in Lugano, you see you have the list of modules. It's different from Zurich. We have hikes instead of hikes and transports. We still have events and museum. But here we are going to define the modules, and those are the exact names of the modules we defined in the modules directory in our white label project. And then now we set up our configuration, and we can give it to the white label engine. So this was before. We add an extra step to our engine, and this step is step we call create modules. It takes again it will produce one file in the destination directory with by using the modules taken from the configuration we read from arguments. And the file is gonna be created here. So you see, we are gonna create an index.js file which was not present in our white label app. And notice that this is not the white label app anymore, but it's underneath builds/ch visit Lugano. And this is the generated project from the engine. And that's in here that we're gonna put our index.js file. For Zurich, will be the same except in the ch visit Zurich project. And the file looks like this. You already seen this. Basically, it's the same imports. Those are the imports we need for Lugano. We are going to store the content into an array and export it. And that's all we need to do. And now, if we open again our white label bottom tab navigator, we see that this can become this. So we are not going to import any more modules one by one, but we choose to import the modules directly from the index file we will create. And this way, the white label application doesn't care anymore if we are building an application for Zurich or an application for Lugano. It just cares that this will be handled later by the white label engine. And now that we fix our navigation problem, we also want to fix the content. So here I've talked a bit about the content. In our case, the different content is what you see on the left. Events for Lugano are different from the events on Zurich. And this is due to the fact that we retrieve the data for Lugano from a different server than the data we retrieve from Zurich. So we have to handle this. And if we take a look at the events component, at the beginning of into the events component, we are going to define a method for fetching our data. So the first thing we are going to do again is define a base URL, which is basically the address where our services are. For Lugano, it will be https visit Lugano.ch. And our fetch function, fetch method, does this. So we have a fetch events method that uses the fetch API to actually retrieve the events from our visit Lugano.ch services. And it's going to return them, and then we can use them to actually render our component. But again, there's something that bothers me, and it's almost the same as before, and it's this. So once again, we have as a base URL visit Lugano.ch. And this doesn't work for Zurich, of course. We have to change this base URL, and it's not really neat. So we want to find a way to fix this problem. And to do that, we once again open our configuration file, and we add a base URL field here. So for Lugano, we will point towards visitlugano.ch. For Zurich, visit zurich.ch. And then the white label engine will consume this base URL, and with a create base URL step again, and will produce this file. So in our source, we are going to create a file, base URL. This is again the builds directory ch visit Lugano, not the white label application. And the content of this file is this. So we export just the address we need. So for Lugano, it's visit Lugano. For Zurich, it will be visit Zurich if we are going to generate the other application. And if we go back here, now we can do this. So import our base URL from the base URL file, which doesn't exist in the white label application, but will exist into the generated project. And now we also fixed the problem for URLs. Of course, this works only if both services provide the same API. So /events will return the actual events. Otherwise, this will not work. Okay, let's solve the theme problem right now. It's almost the same. So we have light theme, dark theme. And it's going to be similar, but, you know, repetitio juvent, so we're going to do it all over again. We have a theme directory, as stated before, and here we will create a subdirectory themes, which will contain all the themes we need. So one will be dark, one will be light. And if we look closely to the light theme, we define a color palette with accent colors, background, text, white background for the light theme, and dark text, and we export those colors. You can also export font families, whatever you need to customize your application. And if we look instead at the dark theme, again, the structure is exactly the same, but we export different colors. So now the background will be dark and the text will be light white. And we are going to use it like this. So we define a loading component, which will be just a page with a spinner in it. And the first thing we do is import the theme from our light file. So our light theme we are going to import. And then we are going to define our loading component, which is this. So we have a view with inside an activity indicator, a spinner that rotates and indicates the loading status. And we are going to set the background color and the actual color of the indicator as taken from our theme, our color palette we defined before. But once again, we have this. It's not very nice. We are importing exactly the light theme, but you know for Zurich it will be the dark one. And we have to fix this because, once again, the white label should not know exactly what theme to use. So we open our configuration file. We know it right now, and we add a theme. And for Lugano, it will be light. And for Zurich, it will be dark. And we let the white label engine deal with this. So we have a create theme method, which actually creates this file in the theme directory, the index file, and the index file will import and export the selected theme. So for Lugano, it will be the light one, and for Zurich, it will be the dark one. And finally, we can open our loading component again, and in here we will replace the import with this. So we will import the index file instead of the theme we need. So once again, the white label doesn't know what theme we are going to use. We are going to tell him later. Okay, so we solve a bunch of problems. We still have some more. So the application ID is very important. We cannot mess with that. So we have to tell our build system to generate applications with different IDs, once with ch visit Lugano and once with ch visit Zurich. And The nice thing about this, we don't have to touch the white label code anymore. We just open our configuration files. We are gonna add the ID we want to select for the application. And the white label engine will take care of it for us. So we have a set ID step. And what this step does, the first part is replace all occurrences of com.whitelabel. This we saw at the beginning of the presentation. It's the default ID for the React Native project we set up. It will replace all these occurrences with the ID we want. In our case, ch visit Lugano. So it will in this file. So we will open all these files, select com whitelabel, replace it with ch visit Lugano. And that's what we need to do first. And then we have an extra step we need to do for Android, and that is move the main activity and main application files into a different path. And this is because the Java files need to be into a package which has the same, follows the same naming as the bundle ID. Otherwise, there might be some problems while building the application. And this is what we are going to do to set our bundle ID. And we are going to do this also for the application name, just simpler. So we want to see underneath the icon visit Lugano and visit Zurich for the other application. So once again, we open our configuration file. We add the name into the configuration, and the engine will take care of it for us. So in this case, we are going to replace all occurrences of whitelabel with visit Lugano, the new name for the application, in those two files, once for Android and once for iOS. And finally, we have application icons. So we want to deal with them as well. So this time we need to put them somewhere. So we open our profiles directory. For each application, we are gonna create a icons directory too, and this will be divided between Android and iOS. And in these directories, we will put all the images we need. Those are kind of standard. We don't want to. I'm just gonna skip over this. It's standard, just a mess. And in the configuration file, we are gonna tell the engine where to find them. So here, I'm gonna set an icon path relative to the configuration, and it will feature the path of the icons. So now the engine will read that path and copy all the content of our Android icons into the source main resources of our build project, and the same for iOS into a different path, of course, but it will do the job. And basically, this is what you need to do to have a working whitelabel application. Those are the few steps. So if we look again at our diagram here, the whitelabel will be given to the whitelabel engine as well as one particular configuration, and an application will be produced. And what happens, we have our whitelabel project, and the whitelabel engine will produce this. So under the builds directory, we will have ch visit Lugano, which is the same as kind of the same as whitelabel app, with an addition of some files we generated that will handle the whitelabel for us. And in addition to generating those files, we also edited some more and moved some others, but that's basically what we did. Obviously, the whitelabel application can be further improved, so we can also handle entitlements and capabilities like push notifications, payments, and so on, permissions that you have to grant the application based on what you're going to feature. We can also handle the versioning system, app localization, what languages are supported, and also the splash screen that animates once you open the application. And some takeaways. The whitelabel framework is really good for applications that share a common structure. So in our case, that would be the navigation system. They are great if we have reusable modules. In our case, the events and museum tabs. And if they share a common API. Otherwise, it will be difficult to handle all that stuff. But bear in mind that there are still some problems tied to the white label app. So let's say we have those two, the events section of our application, and our client asks us to add, just for Zurich, a fab in the section for uploading events or something. Now we are gonna ask ourselves, how are we gonna handle this? Because if we are using exactly the same code for Lugano and Zurich, how can we show the fab in one application and not the other? So we'll have to introduce a feature system to turn it off, turn it on, and it's not really easy. So you have to think a little bit about it. And also, if our client comes up with a new application, let's say Visit Switzerland, which is basically features the both Lugano and Zurich app as sub-modules. Those, as we saw, are the byproduct of white label generation. And is this Visit Switzerland app actually a white label app that we can build with our engine? We don't know. We may have to extend our engine, and it's not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily hard. You have to figure it out, and you have to ask yourself if it's worth it. But if you keep it simple, it's worth it. And right now, I'm gonna show you a little demo. So I built a small white label project. It's similar to the one you saw in the slides. And so in here, here we have the build directory. We can see it doesn't contain anything, so we don't have. I'm gonna mirror this, I think. No. Yes, it's clear. It's better. Okay, it doesn't contain anything right now. And what I'm going to do is instead open the still the build directory, not what I wanted, the white label engine. And in here, what I'm going to do is generate one project. So I'm just gonna copy paste the command for my white label engine, and it should be this. So I started, and now I'm gonna tell the white label engine to take the Lugano profile and configuration from and the white label app as a source. I'm gonna zoom this too, can't see anything, and create into the build directory a Visit Lugano application. It's doing some stuff. I also added a step for installing dependency with Yarn. And while it's doing this, I'm gonna also start a mock server for Lugano. So here I've built also a small server, which will return us data. It's already listening, okay. And here it's done. So we generated our application. If I go now into the build directory, I can take a look and see there's now our generated application. If I go into it, so Visit Lugano, we see we have our React Native project. I can start the bundler. Here I'm gonna also go into Visit Lugano, and here I'm gonna do this, React Native run iOS. There's an error here, it's tied to the vector icons library, don't mind it. It's not really important. While it's building, I can also, here I have something different. Okay, here we have our device. The application should soon start here if everything goes well. Still building. but it will be soon done. So hopefully we can see our actual application working. And here we go. So now we see our application. It's not fully implemented, but we can navigate through sections. We see here we have some content coming from Lugano, and if we launch the application for Zurich, we will see different things. So this is it. So I'm gonna go back to my presentation here, and I've created this application. You can find it on the GitHub page of the project. And okay, we have still a bunch of time. So what I'm actually gonna do here, let's go back. I'm not done. I'm gonna actually produce also the Zurich application so you can see the differences. Here, I'm gonna, instead of generating Lugano, I'm gonna generate the Zurich application. So we are gonna create another project. Here we can go back. Here we can go back. Now we see it has generated a Visit Zurich. Bigger application. I don't know if it's done. No, it's still installing dependencies. Here I'm gonna stop the Lugano server for starting the Zurich one. So like this. Here we're gonna tell it to actually fetch data for Zurich. Okay, nice. Here we have built our project. So we can go here now. Go into see, visit Zurich. Okay, we are gonna start again the Metro bundler. So here Zurich. Okay, and here we are gonna do again React Native run iOS. Okay, here, where is my mouse? Okay, here I can close this application. I don't know if it's closed actually, no. Okay, like this. Nice, and again we are gonna wait for our white label engine to produce the Visit Zurich application. And well, we are gonna see it once it's done. It's a bit slow. There are ways to improve this build process. They are a bit, more complicated for just a demo like this, but could have been worth it. So now we launched our application, and as you can see, the application is actually different. So here we have different events. The theme is different, it's dark. And also here we have different content and a different tab. So that's it about white label applications. I'm gonna go back this time for real to the slides. And so as I said, I uploaded everything you saw in the demo on my GitHub repo. If you liked white label applications, you can join us and work with them. We're hiring. Otherwise, thank you very much, and that's all. We have time for questions if you have some. No. Okay, looks like no one has questions, so thank you all.